It's my pleasure to introduce Rotary International Director, Peter Kyle. Peter first came to the United States from New Zealand in 1973 to pursue postgraduate studies in law at the University of Virginia as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. After a career in private legal practice in New Zealand, he returned to the United States in 1992 to take a position with the World Bank as a senior international attorney. He retired from the position in 2009. He was inducted into Rotary in 1976 and has since served as the organization in many capacities. He's been particularly involved in alumni Rotary Peace Fellow activities. He has also served as an international assembly trainer, a delegate on the Council of Legislation, as a Rotary International President's representative, Dean of the Rotary Representative Network, and is the Rotary International Director for Zones 33 and 34 for years 2020 to 2022. Peter has received the Global Alumni Service to Humanity Award, together with the Service Above Self Award. He and his wife, Margaret, live on the West River in Maryland in a home designed by Margaret and close to their 2 children and 1 grandson. Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jack. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you for that very nice introduction. What a pleasure it is to be with Tripets this afternoon. I hope you're all well and enjoying cooler temperatures or no snow. Your part of the world, the snow is cleared in my part of the world, so life is good. So this afternoon, I want to say a few words about a really exciting initiative that is being rolled out in our 2 zones, 33 and 34, over the next few months. It's called Youth and Peace in Action, engaging 100,000 young community peace builders. It involves peace and youth and Rotary. What a powerful combination. So let me give you just a little bit of background as to how this initiative came about. As you've heard from Jack, I've had a long association with Rotary. My other great passion in life is Outward Bound. I'm sure many of you have heard about Outward Bound. I did a course in New Zealand when I was 20, and I became heavily involved in the administration, eventually becoming the chairman of Outward Bound International. And I've long wanted to bring my 2 extracurricular passions outside my family and my professional life as a lawyer, Outward Bound and Rotary together. Early last year, this dream became a reality. I had some discussions with 2 wonderful Rotary Peace Fellows. One of them is Anna Patel, who's the former chief executive of Outward Bound Peacebuilding, and the other is Patricia Shafer, who was the current chief executive of NewGen Peacebuilders. And you're going to hear from Patricia very shortly. So talking with Anna and Patricia, we conceived the idea of introducing into the 2 zones a peace and unity project, focusing primarily on Interact students, high school students, and based on some very successful programs that Patricia has carried out in Texas and in other parts of North America, and indeed other parts of the world, involving youth and peace and education. So we prepared this proposal, put it out to the districts in our 2 zones. We have roughly 21 out of the 31 districts have committed to support the project. We are very excited about this. They've each contributed funds to get the project underway. We're now in the process of detailed planning, and it involves peace and unity. I've long felt that Rotarians have not only the capability, but the responsibility to do what we can to help overcome the partisan divide that is so common around not only our country, but other parts of the world. We need to reach out more intentionally to law enforcement, to the faith community, to school superintendents, to civic leaders generally. As we all know, conflict starts locally. So solutions to conflict need to be developed locally. And what better organization than to engage in developing local, community-based peace solutions than Rotary? We are the world's largest, primarily peace-building organization. We have 1.2 million Rotarians across 200 countries and territorial jurisdictions. We have a fantastic brand. We have the resources. We have the goodwill. Rotary is well placed to be a community leader in developing peace initiatives. And what better group to work with than youth? So the project involves peace and youth. And that's all I'll say by way of background. I'm now going to pass over to my colleague, Patricia Shafer, who will tell you in a little more detail exactly what this initiative entails. And I hope that you will engage. We're getting very strong support all around the zones, but I think it's particularly relevant to high schools and indirect clubs in your part of the world. So without further ado, let me now turn over to my good friend and colleague, Patricia Shafer.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to all the organizers, including Vicki Zimmerman and the strong team behind her, for the opportunity to be with you. It's been a delight just preparing to be with you at TriPets. My friend, District Governor-elect Andy Lyman, who's down in Florida, likes to say that Rotary Peace Fellows are like unicorns. You hear about them, but the opportunity to meet one, speak with one is a rare sighting indeed. I think that's just because I don't think they've had a Rotary Peace Fellow down in his district yet. But I am a Rotary Peace Fellow, as Peter said, and I am grateful and fortunate for the opportunity I had in 2012 to be selected as a Rotary Peace Fellow and sent to the professional program in Thailand. It was really a remarkable experience. I was chosen for the fellowship because I manage a nonprofit that does a lot of education, training, and development in 3 countries in particular in East Africa: South Sudan, Rwanda, and Uganda. But that is not the only sort of focus or nature of my work as a peace builder. Indeed, I am as Peter said, I'm the executive director of NewGen Peacebuilders, which is a nonprofit that in many ways was inspired by Rotarians, primarily in the Northeast, asking the question. Rotary has 1.2 million members. Rotary has this long history of peace, which I'm going to take a moment to say something about here. And there are now 1,400 or 1,500 Rotary Peace Fellows in the world. And we have this tremendous footprint with young people, whether it's Interact or Rotaract or RI or RILA. Why can't there be programming opportunities for Rotarians to bring peace education to their local communities focused on young people? And, you know, from some Rotarians thinking about what's possible, possibility became real. And so I am going to show you a few slides this morning because I know for some, this will be really a first introduction to the Youth and Peace in Action initiative that Peter just mentioned and was the visionary lead for the zones. And so I'm going to use a few more slides than usual so that you'll have them as a recording so that you can reflect on them later, take them back to your clubs, but also just make sure that we are all able to get on the same page about what, as Peter said, is a really exciting initiative, but it's a big, bold initiative. So it's really important to understand the details. I'm one who likes to think that book covers always tell a story. So a book cover tells a story usually by having a title and a subtitle and then this book is about. So for me, this slide is like a book cover. It basically reads this way. It says Rotary Zones 33 and 34, which, you know, covers a geography in the United States of about 110 million people. And then when you include the Caribbean, 150 million people, and includes 65 to 70,000 Rotarians, believes in peace and believes in youth and peace in action. And as Peter said, has struck about, you know, has set a goal of engaging 100,000 young community peace builders. Now, that is not to say that we will all stop at 100,000 young community peace builders, but it's to set an ambitious goal of, in about 16 plus months trying to get as close as we can to reaching 100,000 young community peace builders. But for me, the best part of this book cover, the formula, is that arrow that points to your 3 districts. Because while this initiative in some ways is inspired by Rotarians who are thinking a lot about peace, and the Rotary Peace Fellows connection, and Peter's deep connections to peace building and peace partnerships within Rotary, it really, like everything in Rotary, lives not just at the district level, but at the club level. Because you are the ones who are in the community, you are the ones who are bringing and convening and connecting with your communities and good ideas that can make a difference. And by the way, I am a Rotary Peace Fellow. I am the Executive Director of NewGen Peacebuilders. I'm also an Institute for Economics and Peace Global Peace Ambassador. And for the Institute for Economics and Peace, that means the strategic partner to Rotary around bringing some forms of peace education to our communities. And I feel fortunate to be in the role of being a connector and a supporter to the districts and clubs to move forward with something like Youth and Peace in Action. So what is Youth and Peace in Action? In many ways, for me, it is an evolution of, an extension of Rotary's great history of peace and peace building. And so I noticed that when I get to speak to Rotarians, especially new Rotarians, they may not be fully aware of that background and those opportunities that exist in Rotary and have existed for a very long time around peace. And so we're managing the slides behind the scenes, and of course we want to move on to the slide that is about the history of Rotary and peace building. Thank you. So 100-year history is what I like to say, especially to new Rotarians, that Rotary's journey with peace building really began, or being an advocate for peace, began before World War I. It continued around World War II. Rotary had an important and significant seat at the table with the founding of the United Nations. And over time, Rotary's advocacy and involvement with peace has just continued to extend and adapt for new generations and new time periods. The Rotary Peace Fellows program, which started about 15 years ago, is one example. And each year, the news is we have more Rotary Peace Fellow candidates, people who apply, than the year before. And so that's really magnificent that it's such an important and competitive program. I mentioned the relationship with the Institute for Economics and Peace, a strategic partner. And it's the Institute for Economics and Peace that created a framework around how do you actually bring positive peace to communities. And so for that partnership to exist with Rotary is an important, addition to this evolving legacy and history of Rotary and peace. And then if we think about the community level, here's a new opportunity. Youth and Peace in Action, bringing peace education to, as Peter said, youth in general, but specifically focusing in this first phase on youth who are at the high school level primarily, and youth in service clubs primarily. So the great thing is this initiative has kind of a thematic and a feel, which seems to be picking up speed, and it is the peace train. So how can zones 33, 34, and importantly the districts, but more even more directly with the communities, the Rotary clubs that are in those districts, be on the peace train, this peace train of bringing 100,000 young community peace builders into the fold, so to speak. Peter mentioned that 22 districts have actually supported this initiative in some way. That is true financially and from an engagement standpoint. The peace train was an idea in July 2020. But over the course of the past 8 months, districts have contributed funds to the initial foundation establishment of this Peace Train initiative, the Youth and Peace in Action initiative. And we like to estimate that over the last 8 months, there are probably 200 leaders from a variety of districts in our zones who have given input, offered advice, helped shape the initiative, and brought home the point that it is possible to do something in a collective way across the zones. And each district has its own identity and connections to its community. So how do we do something as a collective, something that can catch attention because it's done in such a scale sort of way, but really adapts and flexes for the nature and truisms of what goes on in districts. And I have to say there are some leaders in your 3 districts who have been tremendous voices about how to make sure the program is consistent but adapted per district. The one thing that is absolutely consistent across the whole initiative is really represented by the next slide. And it's this. It's that thinking about young people at the center of peace building is not just a nice notion. There's a validity behind it. And so the validity kind of, if you want to read this like another book cover, goes like this. In 2015, the United Nations started talking about this notion of creating a culture of peace. How do different communities, states, countries, the world create cultures of peace? And something they emphasized greatly, and there's a lot of work in the peace building field that demonstrates this is a truism, it's not just a nice idea, is that a culture of peace has to begin with education. And in beginning with education, and we can all be educating ourselves about peace on an ongoing basis, starting with young people is essential. And indeed, young people between the ages of 14 and 24 are an essential group because they're the largest, fastest growing demographic in the world. And if we miss this window of opportunity with 14 to 24-year-olds now, and we look 20 years down the road, we will not be proud of ourselves because there's so much opportunity to connect with and influence these young people. And oh, by the way, young people in the United States are a center in and of themselves with regard to how young people around the world look to inspiration, look to models of young people and how they're operating in the world. I get to travel a lot. Sometimes people call me the Where's Waldo of peace education. And wherever I go, teenagers around the world, young people around the world, even into their late 20s, early 30s, say they pay attention to young people in the United States. And as it goes for them, they are likely to experiment and follow suit. So we look to young people in the US as an inspiration. So what is the Youth and Peace in Action Initiative? I know this bubble map looks like a lot of moving parts. Like, what goodness, this is really interesting. It's really intricate. Several things going on here. How does it read? It really reads as the Youth and Peace in Action Initiative is first and foremost at the center, focused on young peace builders and helping them develop peace projects. And I'm going to explain this a little more in a moment, but essentially it says we have the capacity to do online peace education for large numbers of young people in service organizations. A smaller set of them, but still a significant number of young people, can be trained in how to do peace projects. Next year, from 2021 to 2022, we could kick off this large-scale initiative with a virtual event on International Peace Day, which is September 21, that helps our communities understand that we are all on the peace train and educating a large number of young people with regard to peace education. And oh, there's an opportunity to educate educators. That sounds funny. That's redundant. That's ironic. To provide educators with peace education frameworks and tools that they can bring into their classrooms in ways that they find appropriate, no matter what they're teaching, be it social studies or the environment. And that if we spend a year on that journey, at the end of that year, May 2022, there can be a united celebration, a virtual event for thousands of people. And I don't just mean thousands of people across the zones, thousands of people in every district tuning in to see what peace projects have been created by young people through these programs. What has happened? What was the journey they were on? And how can we all look collectively differently at opportunities to educate even more young peace builders in the future? But that arc above it all is the secret sauce, I like to say. Equipping and supporting Rotarians to be voices in their communities about the power of peace education, the power of Rotary with peace education, and helping their communities get excited about bringing this peace education into local schools and service organizations. So that's the big map, or I guess you would call it a graphic map. A natural question is, are we just getting out of the starting blocks on this idea? Has it ever been done before? Are we starting from scratch? How will it work? And so Peter mentioned the NewGen Peacebuilders program, and I said, oh, that was an idea and inspiration way back in 2012, 2013 from Rotarians up in New England. the process of educating young people around peace, giving them opportunities and mentoring to support peace projects, and revealing these peace projects to local communities has been going on for a while, since 2014. And all these little pins on this map demonstrate all the ways that with the support of Rotarians at the local level, NewGen Peacebuilders and/or that as an archetype for peace education has been happening. It has been happening with high school students. It's happening with university students. We actually currently have a global grant funded initiative right now to educate Rotaractors in positive peace and the intersection between positive peace building and these frameworks we're talking about and hunger alleviation. Not service around hunger, but actual innovations around how to solve hunger problems. So it's been going and growing and blowing, as people like to say, for about 8 years now. But you can see it's been organic. It's been here, it's been there. It's been in Charlotte, North Carolina, for example, in District 7680. It's been an 8-year history, but it's new in Lebanon. You know, it's a longer set of experiences in California or Texas. But you know, new things popping up all the time. So what does that say about TriPets, right? What does that say about our opportunity to be together across 3 districts? What's really exciting is Peter said, you know, there's been energy with 22 districts contributing to the original foundation for the program, which is true. And you know, I don't even think we can find the words to celebrate that enough. But currently, as we undertake what's really the new phase of now starting to plan for the introduction of the peace education in the coming academic year, 21-22, there are right now 16 districts that are in conversation about this initiative. They've either committed to the initiative, are finalizing their plans to be committed to the initiative, or giving serious consideration to. Now notice we've taken the liberty of including your 3 districts. That's because some of your leaders have had really powerful, engaging conversations about this possibility. And so here we are presenting to you today, and that's part of the conversation. But obviously a next step coming out of this conversation would be to think about this where communities are, where Rotary clubs are. And as presidents to think about, wow, what did I hear today? Is this interesting? Does this connect to our Interact clubs? Does it connect to relationships that we want to build with other service clubs in our community? You know, what does this mean for us, you know, down where we live? So I want to show you quickly what it means when peace education comes alive with young people and it turns into peace projects, because I have learned from experience over the past 8 years. If I just say young people, peace projects, all kinds of things can come to mind. So let us show you for a few minutes what this looks like in execution.
Many of the world's great peace leaders have pointed at the potential of young people. So, in February 2020, hopes ran high in greater Metro Charlotte, North Carolina, when 63 students from 20 high schools became the newest group to embark on the journey to become certified NewGen Peacebuilders. To be certified, participants complete intensive learning workshops to understand drivers of conflict and peace, and then design and complete team action peace projects in at least one of these areas: awareness, service, advocacy, or philanthropy. The Greater Metro Charlotte group had just finished peace project planning in 8 teams. All systems were go. And then, COVID-19 spread on a global scale. They faced this question: how can we work on peace projects with closed schools and stay-at-home restrictions? Incredibly, all 8 teams adapted, persevered, and used new virtual skills to do so. Here are highlights from 4 of the 8 projects that share one thing in common: a belief in education as an essential pathway to peace. A growing number of teenagers are expressing their fears that climate change threatens their future, and their frustrations are not taken seriously. In 2015, the United States EPA and USDA announced a 2030 goal to reduce food waste, landfill waste, and carbon emissions by 50%. The Lighter Footprints team discovered that U.S. school cafeterias serve nearly 5 billion lunches every year in ways that add to the carbon footprint. So, The team partnered with Houston-based Footprint app and California-based Edible Schoolyards to develop an e-food feature that helps students advocate for sustainable food choices and lesson plans to make available to high schools in all 50 states. Data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that the majority of the 20 fastest-growing occupations between 2018 and 2028 will require completion of challenging science, technology, engineering, and math classes, or STEM. The All In for STEM team members realized that nearly all of them have a passion for STEM in common. They researched differences across race and ethnicity in who chooses STEM classes and careers, and learned that the earlier children experience engaging activities, the better. Children in low-income minority schools often miss out on these experiences. The team partnered with Heal Charlotte, a community-building nonprofit started in 2016 after protests in the city turned violent, with racial inequity at the core of the conflict. Team members designed and delivered STEM learning kits and delivered virtual lessons to young people in households served by Heal Charlotte. The No More Hotspots team focused on human trafficking of minors and learned that the state of North Carolina mandates schools to provide awareness instruction on human trafficking and sexual assault. But classroom content is not easily available or useful. Guided by an educator familiar with state education standards, the team developed an extensive human trafficking learning unit for high schools and a plan to present it to their local county board of education and the North Carolina Education Legislative Committee. Their bigger goal, a multidisciplinary unit available for use by high schools during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. It's been noted during the COVID-19 crisis that immigrants are at higher risk because many work in essential business service roles. Most official websites on COVID-19 protection measures are in English only, and protective face masks are not widely available to immigrant communities. The Helping Hands for Humanity team members from East Charlotte, the most diverse area of the city, were sensitive to the disparity. The team translated government COVID-19 postings into a multiple language website, recruited volunteers to sew protective masks and attach information about the website, collected donations to fund the effort, and partnered with local nonprofits serving refugees and immigrants to distribute the masks and information. These NewGen Peacebuilders focus on what they care about, test their concerns with data, listen to community members, and become equipped to build bridges for the rest of their lives.
I will probably remember for the rest of my life when that cohort was underway and those teams were just getting ready to work on their peace projects, supported by trained volunteer Rotary mentors. And it became apparent that COVID-19 was going to get in the way, to say the least, of them being able to get out in their community and work on peace projects in the traditional way. So the fact that they were able to demonstrate for all of us what magnificent peace projects can look like, even when managed virtually, was an unexpected, challenging, nevertheless, gift and lesson to us all. Now, what's happened since? We knew that if there was going to be the opportunity to really kind of scale peace education at the community level across a number of districts or zones, that virtual was going to be a part of our lives. It was that experience with the onset of COVID-19 that just reinforced that that was going to be a part of the formula. This photo is actually taken from a cohort. We have several cohorts running right now that are doing all of their programming virtually. And what has been great is we have been able to translate much of the live experience online. So we still do lots of interactive experiences. We do breakouts. We have, in fact, there are 2 teams just today. I've stepped away to be with you, who are actually beginning their peace project selection process in an open source but facilitated kind of way online. And they will be considering whether they want to work on peace projects around environment, mental health, cultural diversity. Let's see what else. Housing and homelessness. And you can see these are some of the comments that we're getting because it's such an interactive experience. And we're doing much the same thing with educators that we're working with. So this makes this virtual learning experience, and seeing that it can work out beautifully online, helps us make the case for what it can look like in scale, or on scale, or to scale across many districts in the 21-22 year. And so what does this mean for you? So the opportunity out of this presentation, and I know we're going to do a Q&A after this, is to think about what the opportunities and or questions and or experiences might be in your 3 districts. What I always think is an interesting question is a program like this only available and relevant in large city settings? And so one of the things we have learned over time is, oh my goodness, the opportunity to build bridges across full districts using online experiences is tremendous. And even in that 8-year program that's existed in 7680, now multiple counties are being covered and they're able to come together through this virtual experience. So there are what we call 3 levels of districts participating, but we want to demonstrate that the core of this program, the essence of this program, after coaching from Rotarians about what's important and important in their communities, is these 3 pieces. The online peace education for large numbers of students who are in service clubs, especially Interact, but not only Interact. We have interest and participation from Rotary partners such as, well, relationships like Model United Nations, Boys and Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, leadership academies. And the year of 21-22, again, would kick off with International Peace Day, which is September 21, a virtual kickoff for all concerned, as we like to say in Rotary. Then this online peace education experience for large numbers of students in service clubs. And then in January, February 2022, the actual multi-week virtual peace project training, and then the development and implementation of peace projects. These other 2 pieces on the side are supplemental and really wonderful. The United Celebration is, again, as I said, in May 2022, the opportunity to share with communities all of these peace projects and the journey that students have been on. And then, of course, the quintessential apple representing professional development for teachers. By the way, professional development for teachers usually takes place in the summer. So we think in terms of summer institutes. And that piece, in many ways, the bulk of it may come in the summer of 2022. So that's what it all kind of is. Well, how is it going to unfold if we've been planning and developing and districts have been getting aligned and working committees starting to form? What does it look like from a calendaring standpoint? So you can see a lot of planning has gone into this. Here's kind of a flow, and I'm going to show you 2 slides, but just touch on them because you'll be able to look at them at your leisure. A flow that gets us from here through May 2022. But the 2 most important months, the reasons we've highlighted these are March 2021 and April through May 2021. Why? Because February was Peace Building and Conflict Resolution Month. It is annually within Rotary. And so it's been exciting to talk to different districts and different groups, and in some cases clubs, about this opportunity. But March 1 is kind of go date. Go date in the sense of, we're all making decisions together. Districts and clubs are making decisions about this is an opportunity for, as we say, where they live at the community level. And working with these working committees, we're able to identify connections with Interact clubs, connections with school superintendents, connections with schools of interest, connections with service clubs. And then April, May is important because even though the program is next year, technically, so to speak, starts in September 2021, this is a magic window to start to create excitement in our communities, tell the story of this initiative and what it can mean, and where there are relationships with superintendents and schools already, really take advantage of, benefit from those relationships to build energy. And that's the thing that ever amazes me is, again, all the relationships Rotary has at the local level, but especially in education. And I can say that some of the leaders in your 3 districts have some of that amazing educational background and leadership experience themselves. I find, I learn more about that every day. So then just quickly showing the next slide, you can see that there's a plan of action that really then continues from International Peace Day in September through May 2022. And I won't spend a lot of time on that because what's more important is that we just really give you the big picture and make sure we have enough time for questions and answers. So then I know also from experience, amazing Rotarians with all these connections in their communities, amazing Rotarians who are the secret sauce in terms of sharing the opportunities of youth peace education, still need support. And so we wanted to make sure that you knew, and Peter mentioned this when he opened, there are two organizations that he's identified as implementing partners to support and engage with and be partners to working committees at the district level, made of people who are very interested in peace education initiatives or the Youth Peace Education Initiative, but also make sure that we're providing the tools, the templates based on experience that make it easy for Rotarians to take this story to their communities, to share what this is going to be. And again, that magic window is kind of, March and April, where we'll be working together. So Peter mentioned Anna Patel. She is a Rotary Peace Fellow also, and also a Rotary representative to the United Nations, as am I. Flavio Bolog is the executive director of the other implementing partner organization. He has a lovely long experience in community peace education and peace building too. And then Elizabeth Peacock is our director of operations, who has many years of experience actually working with high schools and 8 years of experience doing the kind of programming that we're talking about. So I just wanted to say there is a team and more, even beyond this slide, who is there to support you. So with that being said, it just seems that it might be appropriate to say, there are 31 districts in zones 33, 34. There are 28 in the continental United States. How exciting that in 8 months, this initiative has gone from an idea to early inception to it's a reality, and the peace train is moving. And so I think Peter and I want to be available to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. And Peter is going to rejoin us, I believe, also on this part. And if we could do that. If you do have questions, a reminder to go ahead to the Q&A section here, and in there you can take and type in your questions, and we will try to pass those along as we get an opportunity to do so. Okay. There is a question in here about Europe. I'm afraid I don't quite understand the question completely. It says, do we have some actions in Europe? And I'm not really sure what that means exactly, although I guess, Patricia, the question is, is this program going on in Europe also? Is there a European connection occurring?
There is, but first, Peter, did you want to say anything sort of about peace or peace in general? I mean, you are the expert in terms of global peace activities. So maybe if you want to say that, then I'm happy to answer that question.
Right. Well, I saw that question, and my immediate reaction was, yes, indeed, there are lots of peace-related activities in Europe. I'll let Patricia focus on the type of initiatives that we are proposing. Last weekend, I participated through Zoom in a peace conference in Turkey. There have been other peace conferences in Europe. There's a very active peace building community in the UK. They're also doing peace and education initiatives. There are many peace-related initiatives all around the world, some of which we hear about, some of which we don't. But as I said before, peace is very much in Rotary's DNA. We have peace conferences, peace symposia, peace academy, you name it. Rotary is a peace-building organization par excellence. So I'll pass over now to Patricia.
Yeah, well, I like Peter's point. A Rotary is really kind of a peace ecosystem, our colleague Anna Patel likes to say, whether it's Mediators Beyond Borders or the Rotary Action Group for Peace or the Rotary Peace Fellows Program. So I couldn't say it better than Peter. We do have NewGen Peacebuilders, this core element, one of the core elements for the initiative in Europe. It's actually started because of Rotary connections, but it's actually a program over there that is in collaboration with a group that is State Department funded. And so we actually have an initiative with university students across the Western Balkans and Southeast Europe that is in progress and officially starting in April.
Great, thank you. There's a question here about with March 1st coming up, how do we jump on? I guess that relates directly to, it's how do we get on this peace train? And what should the people in the clubs be doing at this point if they're interested? Where do we go next?
That's one for Peter. First and foremost.
Well, we'd love you to join on the 1st of March. As Patricia has mentioned, we're working closely with DGs around the two zones. We have a very simple way for clubs and districts to participate. We're inviting clubs to apply for a district grant, a $1,000 district grant. As Patricia mentioned, there are various levels of engagement in the initiative. We're calling them champion, anchor, and participating, $50,000, $30,000, and $15,000. And we are looking for to take an anchor level of engagement. That would require 15 clubs, each to apply for a $1,000 district grant. And hopefully the DGE and the DRFC and the district is prepared to put aside $15,000 as matching funds. And we would then get to the $30,000 level. So it's a very simple way for clubs to engage in this initiative. There's a lot more detail we can provide. There are slides. We are very keen to engage directly with clubs so that we can share this good news with those who are likely to be implementing the project.
Thanks, Peter. Carlos asked, how does the program connect with the youth programs that we already have going on with the Interact, RILA, Rotaract? How does this all tie together?
Oh, that's a tremendous question. And I think it would have been a tremendous question a year ago. It's even more pertinent this year because in many districts, and it's not just Rotary, things are disrupted, right? So there are systems in place with Interact clubs and so on that may not be in exactly the same position they were last year. And so the reason I say that as my initial response is there are two ways. The program is really designed. So first and foremost, it's available to interactors. And in fact, in the several programs that are running right now, half of the participants are interactors and then half come from other service clubs. And that's not by design, it just happens to be the way it is, but it turns out to be very exciting because young people and other service organizations find out about Interact and Rotary for the first time. So we'll have participants from student government, Model United Nations who say, what's this Interact? What's this? This is, oh my goodness, look at all the opportunities with Rotary. So it's designed to actually embrace Interact clubs and provide Interact clubs with new opportunities, additional opportunities. Sometimes we get inquiries about RILA, for example, or Rotary Youth Exchange. And because it happens in the spring, outbound Rotary Youth Exchange, we've had actually participate in the program. RILA is, of course, a different animal, as we all know. It's sort of a concentrated experience. And so some of the content is available through RILA, but the program itself is, has longer duration. So, so the full experience of the program doesn't usually happen in a RILA format, but it is designed to be complementary and to be strengthening Interact and Rotary's overall relationship with service clubs, even beyond Interact.
Great, thank you. A couple of questions really are sort of the nuts and bolts. Is there a toolkit for it, or is there a template for it? How, we all like a roadmap as we go through with this, go through a project. So do you have anything out there at this point?
Yeah, well, so it's not out there because we really wanted to get through February, and then with March 1, have that be the beginning of really understanding, you know, which districts are really want to engage in a way where they can really start bringing the story to communities. The roadmap, or the tools and templates, as you say, though, do consist of materials that can be taken to educational organizations, so schools and service clubs. And interestingly enough, Peter mentioned the funding model, you know, tools that can be taken to local sponsors who might want to partner up with Rotary to support the program. We're advising each district to really identify a small number of people that are also kind of a working committee to work with us. And then we work with them to provide the tools and templates and toolkits to your clubs and sort of guide the process. Yeah,
Okay.
and so and those toolkits become available mid-March.
Great, thanks. Tom had a question here. The examples that you gave tended to be more environmental projects that the youth groups are working on. On other examples that you have, do we get into breaking down barriers or of feuding groups on something like that? Do you have some other examples that you might be able to share?
Yes, well, and in fact, I think that is sort of part of the eye-opening experience for young people, is that peace and positive peace can really be something you engage in that runs the gamut. So the issue can be environmental, it can be mental health, it can be, we actually have 2 cohorts right now who have chosen race and diversity as one of their focal topic areas. Kind of the beauty of the structure is everybody around the world gets exposure to some common frameworks and tools, including the pillars of positive peace from the Institute for Economics and Peace. But issues are ultimately community level, they're contextual. And so what you'll see happening is the peace projects are as unique as the communities themselves. You know, Santa Rosa, California doesn't look like Sarasota, Florida, doesn't necessarily look like Charleston, West Virginia, so to speak.
Okay, very good. Question from Fred, which was how do club presidents or presidents-elect contact their district and their district to get involved with this initiative? You know, logistics are normally the sticking point on getting started. So do you have any advice on that, besides maybe turning that all back to the district governor-elects there and getting their answers? But Patricia, you have any thoughts, or Peter?
Well, I think your district governor, well, I'm sure Peter has a perspective from his vantage point, and I have a perspective just from seeing what districts have been gearing up to do. So there will be these toolkits. It is important to understand if the district is really ready to engage. It is important for, I think, the district leadership to hear from presidents that they believe their clubs which of their clubs might be very interested in this. And so because there's no working committee yet in your 3 districts, I think first line of reception would be for presidents to reach out to your district leadership and say, I heard that, you know, presentation, I'm interested, and we should be following up with your districts. That's from my perspective, but Peter, you probably have a different perspective.
No, I think you've answered it very well. This is very much a club activity. It's perfect for clubs, especially those who have sponsored indirect clubs or who have some particular association with a high school. And we need to drill down and talk to those clubs. And this is the beginning of that overture. As Patricia has said, we hope that each of the 3 districts will set up a small committee to be the boots on the ground that can liaise with Patricia and her team and begin the process of marketing the product out to clubs. We have all sorts of material ready for that. We are just so grateful that all 3 districts that are represented here today have already indicated strong support for this initiative. So the next step is to set up the local committees in each district, and then working with them and with the district interact chairs to fan out to individual clubs. So we're looking forward to that. We're very excited, and we're confident that clubs are going to find this a very worthwhile activity in which to engage.
In fact, Peter's comment makes me think there is probably one thing I could add. I think a perfect example of that is District 7545, which is, much of West Virginia. So just last week, we did a 90-minute presentation for what they were thinking of as their budding working committee. So the DG, the DGE was there as part of the conversation, plus others who care about youth, others who care about peace and might naturally think of as their working committee. We did a 90-minute information session for them and conversation. So I would suggest, districts could reach out to us that way. We'd be happy to do it.
Okay, a lot of people within a district who could come together to help create the committee for this. Great. There is a club, Rick notes, is a club in his district that's developed and purchased materials for an anti-bullying harassment education program to local schools and teachers. And the question is, how do we tie this together with the initiative that you're talking about and expand it? Any suggestions?
I think Rick just gave us the answer. That really is the opportunity. It's when good work has already been done, to really know about it, absorb it, reflect it, and then use a platform like this, a big, signature initiative for peace education, to keep presencing those materials. Yeah, there's a way to work together and make it, beautifully, what's the word? Intersectional?
I'll go with that word. I guess the overall question is, are young people really capable of pulling off these peace projects?
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, so I have three answers on that one, perhaps, but I'll try to make it roll into one, the length of one. So, we have an experience base with this, right? So if you look at just District 7680, 500 Peacebuilders have been certified. NewGen Peacebuilders have been certified. Young Peacebuilders have been certified, just because the program started there way back when, because I am a Rotary Peace Fellow and live in that area. And so we can track, right? So a couple of things happen. One thing that happens is you see that these young people produce these peace projects, and then they go on to produce more peace projects when they quote unquote left the nest. So that's one. Two is the kinds of projects that get created. They're all different. They're all incredibly different. But I'll give you one example. A group of students worked on actually a human trafficking project because they discovered they live in an area that is impacted by human trafficking. And they learned that their state legislature actually mandates that there be human trafficking awareness instruction in health classes in schools, but it wasn't really available. And so they worked with a master educator to actually design a curriculum that could be available in their schools, and the schools would find acceptable. And their state legislature has now recognized their curriculum. And in the process, they became connected with a local nonprofit and have raised over $1,000 for that nonprofit, and continued the program on a long-term basis. So that's just one example to say, yes, they can, and yes, they are eager to be invited. And the guidance of volunteer mentors makes a huge difference. So when we train Rotarians and other community mentors to work with them, their peace projects are likely to be very sound.